there, boys, girls, and squirrels. My name is Devin. And my wife is trying to replicate me because I'm perfect.
Yes, I like my imitations of Devin. And I'm Cheyenne, if you don't know my name.
Alrighty, so normally I introduce myself as Modstab because we're doing gaming things, but I really, really wanted to start doing some podcast stuff because I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I don't know, it's just, I've been trying since the beginning of YouTube to get my wife on board with anything I do. And this is the first time we see her officially partake and like actually do things on the channel. So it's exciting. But welcome to the first ever Modscast. We're going to go ahead and leave these unedited, unfiltered. I might do some color correction and stuff to make myself look more beautiful than I already do. But that is what it is. And today's topic is what?
What it's like to be married as of April 25th, 2020. I have this disclaimer to make right away. I am the most awkward video person ever. I'm sure I'll get better as time goes on, but you're just going to have to, you're just going to have to bear with me. I like to give like a ba-do-ba-do-ba-do, and then I have like these awkward pauses, then it's like ba-do-ba-do-ba-do-ba-do.
Yeah, it's great.
So anyway, I will get better. Maybe I'll just talk slow all the time so that my brain can catch up with my mouth. So my mouth can catch up.
This is going to be the most awkward podcast ever.
It will, because it's the first one.
Anyways, so what it's like to be married. So I guess the first thing to talk about is what do we think that means?
What does it mean?
Yeah. I'm going to drink my drink.
Means that we're stuck for life.
Yeah, so we are stuck together.
At the hip.
That's
you
right.
can't see it on camera, but we are. And whenever he makes a video, I'm hiding.
She is.
Under the desk.
What it means to me is I get a fine piece of booty. Yeah.
I just want to point out.
High fives in the chat.
You know, something you should be aware of is, and we're going to get into like that first year and the first 5 years.
We'll explain
and
everything
we've learned.
and agonizingly, painfully detailed.
Something I want to tell you about being married is it really makes you re-examine your expectations on other people.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I expected everybody to be as good as me, and I'm slowly figuring out that that's not the case. I have to lower my standards. Get out of my nose hole.
Lower your standards. In a way, yeah.
I mean, for real.
You have to figure out.
Oh, I gotta reevaluate my life decisions so I can lean back and just go full.
Welcome to my life.
Yeah.
You have to learn what battles you want to fight, what battles aren't worth fighting.
Most of them.
Most of them is right. And I think at the very heart of being married is this idea that no matter how much the other person makes you nuts, we're polar opposites.
Oh, yeah.
In so many ways.
In pretty much every way.
So many ways.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole point of being married is doing life together and being committed to that person. And I do know that you've rounded me out in many ways.
We're fine.
And we continue.
We're just podcasting.
We continue to grow, and we continue to wear down each other's sharpnesses.
Yeah, fair enough.
I guess.
Well, I think a really good way to kind of really describe what you're talking about is so many people think that when you get married, your goal is to fix the other person. Like you get married because you're broken and so you need something to fix. And quite honestly, like if you can't make it yourself, like if you can't do something yourself, getting married isn't going to fix it. All that getting married does is it very agonizingly shows you where your shortcomings are and that it amplifies them by like 1,000,000,000%, because not only now do you have to take care of yourself, but you have to take care of somebody else's both emotions, like physically, spiritually, financially. You have to take care of all of those things, and every single weakness you're going to see is just going to be amplified in like painstaking detail. So I think that's one misconception I think a lot of people have about marriage is it's to get together, two broken people to fix each other. But if you're two broken people and you can't at least stand on your own, it's gonna fall to shambles without something holding it all together. So I think that's one thing that I've come to realize is anything that I had pain points about before I got married, they didn't just disappear because I got married. They became more evident and more annoying.
I think for me, getting married like really highlighted insecurities I have, and just certain. It helped me see insecurities that I didn't realize, and I'm really good at this.
She keep every time I move the mic closer, she like, no microphone. You have to be we're podcast mode, baby.
No,
get that.
but you say it.
I'm sorry for peeking my mic. I'll adjust it in post, but we need the beautiful resonance of your voice hole into the mic hole. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, in a nutshell, what does it mean to be married?
I apologize for my dog.
It means that you're a team, and it means that you put up with working through each other's
everything,
and
everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I say good and the bad and the ugly partially for jest, but literally all the good that you saw in your spouse before you were married, you kind of ignore and push to the wayside, and you start seeing the bad and the ugly more often, because chances are there's more of those traits in somebody than good, or than good. Is it than good?
We just had this conversation.
I don't remember.
It's than, T-H-A-N.
Yeah, because English is an amazing language and not flawed at all.
It's not.
Anyways.
It's like, see, we're committed to our language, but sometimes we don't like it very much. That's like marriage.
You could so tell that she's a teacher. Make sure that you're talking in the mic, because I'm trying to watch the audio levels on occasion, and we're in a sad state of mind. Anyways, you start noticing and really nitpicking on the bad things of marriage, like almost immediately. You have I would say you have like a 2-month window. Where everything is like blissful and joy, and like, oh, my life is so perfect. Yes. Ooh. Twirl your mustache if you can grow facial hair, unlike me who can't. But then as soon as you get past that 2 months, you're just like, I hate you. It reminds me of a 3-Day Grace song.
Did you really hate me after 2 months?
No, gosh, no. I
okay, you're making these general blanket statements, and I'm like, what am I supposed to think about that?
No, I didn't hate you, but I found myself getting annoyed at even the things that I enjoyed before we were married.
Aww.
There was definitely things that I found myself getting annoyed about because I just kind of let it build up. It's like that classic example of like you bottle it up until you just blow up. Not that I don't think that's one thing that I think has separated our marriage from a lot of other marriages out there is I don't think we've ever really blown up on each other. Like, we had instances where we might be a little rigid towards one another.
Rigid is a good word.
But we've never, officially just stormed out or yelled at each other, or screamed at each other, because we kind of set this precedence. And part of that's, our faith base, being Christians and whatnot. But we've set this precedence, even while we were dating. It was like, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk this out. And we're going to figure it out. If you need a 10, 20-minute break before we talk it out, we'll do that. But we have to come back and we have to talk about this to get over it. And so we've kind of set that precedent from the very beginning.
I'm grateful, too. One thing, talking about being rounded out and the sharp edges being worn away because, friction, and friction hurts.
That's right, baby. Or it feels good. Depend on the type of friction. Welcome to the Modscast, children.
This is not tagged for children.
Also, if you're under the age of 14, get the flip and flip off my
Stop.
Go away, Copa.
It's not for
Copa.
you.
Go away, Copa.
Just know that.
In nomine Patris et Filii.
I don't even know where I was.
You were talking about how glorious and awesome I was. Continue.
Something that is truly glorious and awesome about my husband is his self-control with his emotions.
Yeah.
His ability to rein in any anger, any frustration, is really, really admirable, and something that I had to learn with him. And he told me point blank on a couple different occasions, I would get mad and I would like slam things down. And he told me finally after about 2 or 3 years of being married.
It was probably closer to 2 because I felt like it was personally pretty early on. So
it was
probably
early.
Probably close to the 2 years.
But he told me, he's like, you need to stop doing that. And his reason was it's a sign that you're out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And you're pushing to see how much you can be out of control without truly being out of control.
Yeah.
And that really hit me hard because I pride myself, maybe wrongly, on being somebody who wants to do things the right way. And
enough.
you know, him pointing that out as this like glaring flaw in how I was approaching being angry. Not that it's wrong to be angry, but doing stuff like that, I mean, that it was one of those really good
intersections, I guess.
Yes.
Well, and I think one thing that I kind of want to point out while we're talking about like being out of control emotionally, it wasn't so much that it was anger and you were out of control. It's like for me, any emotion that's out of control, whether that's joy or anger or frustration, whatever it is, if you're out of control and you can't reel back and stop for a minute to kind of think where you're at, like absorb your surroundings and making sure that you can kind of navigate your next steps without being completely led by that decision or that emotion, I think that for me, is a much bigger kind of, I guess, bottleneck, so to speak. Because if you're completely ruled by joy, let's say you get really happy by a decision. Like for me, I tend to be swayed by joy a little bit more than like anger, just because I've learned to control anger better. But a great example of this would be like when we're looking at cars, for instance.
I was wondering where you were going to go with the joy being out of control.
Yeah,
thing.
and it's like we will occasionally look through pre-approvals and things like that, and we are looking to do some stuff with home buying and whatnot, which we'll get to a little later in the Modscast. TM maybe. Please don't copyright my stuff. Is we got pre-approved for I would say is a pretty decent amount for a car loan, just like flat out.
I know what
we pretty much we could have pick and chose basically whatever vehicle we wanted, pretty much in existence at that point, you know, and outliers like industrial vehicles, obviously, which are like millions of dollars. But we got pre-approved for what I thought was a lot of money to get a vehicle. And my first thought was like, what's the biggest truck I could buy? I want all the Hemis. And so I saw it, and the first thing I did, like literally the first thing I did when I saw the amount I got pre-approved for, I went online to the Ram dealership nearest to us. I saw the most expensive truck, and I said, wife, I want this truck in red.
That was pretty much how it went.
And so I was like, oh, this money. And then we actually, fortunately for me, we ended up actually buying that truck. Mostly, full disclosure, okay, we could have bought a more expensive truck, but we didn't, okay? We reeled it back. We were like, okay, let's calm down a little bit. We got a pretty good
deal for it.
So we were out of control initially for the joy.
Well, he was.
But we did reel it back a little bit and realize, well, maybe we don't need that big of a truck. And so we got a really good deal on a 1500 Bighorn V8, 5.7 liter. So, I mean, I still got a beefy boy, okay? I think it's 12,000 pound towing capacity. It's a half ton. So, I mean, we got a good truck and we got a good deal. Maybe we'll show it off at the beginning of like in
a future Modscast.
in like the next episode of like the Modscast or whatever. But that's just an example of like starting out of joy and being able to kind of reel it back and being like, okay, let's take it a little slow for a minute.
I just made a connection, which is cool.
Uh-oh. It's dangerous.
He tends to be more out of control with joy.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be more out of control with negative emotions. Have you noticed that?
Such a woman.
Because you get so excited and you're like, oh, I want to buy all the things. And I'm like, nah.
My new venture is the Edelkrone camera system.
Not yet.
If you guys would love to donate and support me, there is a tip page in the description below, as well as a Patreon page, which, by the way, we're giving away things on the Patreon page for subscribers. So if you want to check it out, the link's in the description. Or if you just want to buy me the Edelkrone system, okay, and then drive it straight to my house, worship me a little bit, and then go on your merry little way. I'm just kidding. But for real, if you guys want to check out the tip page and the donation page for Patreon and things like that, links are in the description. However, I digress.
Out of control joy.
Exactly. I think we've kind of beat a dead horse. Is that how the saying goes? I beat horses on my free time, apparently. But
Can I ask how long we've been going?
I don't know.
Because we put bullet points, and I think
we haven't even hardly covered the first one.
Well, we kind of jumped to one of the last bullet points.
That's okay. We'll talk about it later. Anyways, what's our story, wife? I kind of think it'd be really cool, actually, to do this from a his and her perspective.
Starting with his.
I think you should start, and then I'll interject with what I'm thinking, because you tend to be... You remember some of the most nitpicky details about this that I don't know. I was like, I buy a ring. I walk up and I'm like, here, wife, have ring, marry me. And she says yes. Okay, that's what I remember. So you start, and then I'll interject if you jog my memory on something really important to the story. Go. Story time, baby.
I thought we were good at... Okay, Devin, I'm going to turn it back on you. I'm going to answer your question with a question.
Let's do it.
Where did we meet, Devin? How old were you?
I was like, I think I was like 2 months old in the crib, and she went to the nursery at the local hospital and picked me out.
Not true.
If you couldn't tell, she's older than me.
Not by that much.
No, not by that much. It was more like I was like 6 months old, but anyways, I think when we first officially met, it was at wasn't it a camp, and I was 18, I think? Or was I 16?
You were going into your senior year of high school.
So I was 18.
Okay.
I got held back when I was in like kindergarten or something because I was too smart.
That's right.
Yeah, big brain.
Big brain.
Anyway, so...
It's making his hair fall out.
Yeah, that's right.
Put your hat on.
Yeah, I don't know why I squealed, but I squealed. Anyway, so I guess we'll start there. Hey, girl. It's okay. I don't know what she was barking at, but apparently she stopped now. Anyway, so we'll start there. I was going into my senior year of high school. I was 18 at the time, and I did a lot of camp counseling. Long story short, to kind of jump cut, so to speak, a lot of these little tiny details. It is a church camp. Well, it was a church camp, and I do a lot of them, okay? And so you meet a lot of people when you're doing these camps. I don't remember exactly how we met. I think it was your first year of staying in class, right?
Nope.
First year of SCSC?
It was my first year of SCSC, which is Summer Christian Service Corps. And I had met... Let me back up. I had grown up in the area that this church camp is located, which is about 4 hours from here, from
Roughly.
where we currently live, which... Yeah. And he's from around this area.
Like 10 minutes from here.
Yes. And so there are a group of people from this area who go down and work those church camps, or at least they used to a lot more frequently.
We can't do anything now. We're stuck in our homes.
Well, yeah.
Thank you, COVID.
Okay. So anyway, he was down there. I was on project, and I was able to serve my home church, which was running that camp. And I met him. I was not what I would say interested, because I was actually a couple years into college. I was 20.
She thought she was cool.
I did think I was kind of cool.
She's kind of stuck up.
I was not stuck up. Was I stuck up?
Not really.
Oh, okay. Aww.
Oh, yeah.
I remember thinking that he was a lot of fun, though. I didn't get to know him very well during that week, but he was the one who would just go nuts with the kids, and he would run around like a madman, and he was super athletic, which I thought that was kind of cool, but I'm like, oh, he's too young. You know. And I technically wasn't supposed to get romantically involved with anybody while I was on project.
But I was too smooth.
No, you weren't.
I don't think anything even happened.
No,
for
it didn't.
How many years afterwards? Like 2, 3?
The moment that I realized he was really good friend material was when we were at a big old conference later that summer.
Yeah, was that Pennsylvania?
No.
Was that the one where you slid down the railing and almost died because you didn't put your bike helmet on?
No, that was the following summer.
Oh, okay.
You remember that story?
I do, because it was so stupid.
It was stupid, but we aren't going to get into that story.
We'll talk about that later, but real quick, I guess, to interject here.
What?
Even up to that point, which is after what she's talking about here, I wasn't even, like, it wasn't even remotely on my radar. I had my eyes set on somebody else. But
and I had my eyes set on, like, 3 other people.
Oh,
in
my
that, maybe not in that
Oh,
particular
my
moment.
good Lord. I like 12 guys at the same time.
I like 2 or 3 at any given time.
I like 2 or 3 at it. I won.
But you were never in them.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. So
that's right. I left her speechless.
I realized there was a pastors versus kids basketball game at this conference we were both at. And we had this halftime show thing. Do you remember that?
Oh my gosh. It was stupid, but it was so fun.
What was great is it was that pew banana. Pew, pew, banana. Hopefully you've heard of this somewhere.
It's like a camp song that you would occasionally do. It was stupid.
And
but
he, at camp, had made up the last part when he just went nuts. He was like, B-A-N-A-N-A-S, bananas.
He just scream as loud as you can.
Oh my gosh. And I had never heard that version of it before. Or that ending to it
reminds
before.
me, doesn't Madonna do a song where she does the bananas thing?
No, that would be Gwen Stefani.
Gwen Stefani? Okay, I was close. They're both women. They both sing music, and they both kind of sang at the same time. So, I mean, not too far off. They had totally separate styles, but you know what? It's okay because I am an uneducated swine. I digress.
Anyway, in that moment, I knew that he was definitely friendship material because he was like, he just doesn't care what people think about him.
Oh, you have no idea. Yep. Oh, there's... Okay, not to
maybe
get
at that time you did, but it came across that you really didn't.
I didn't care very much. I cared enough to make sure that I didn't lose the friends I had, but I cared so little about what anybody else thought of me. Like, I'm the kind of guy that if it was perfectly okay and not like a violation of public code, I would... What? I'm just resting my arms over here. That's right. I'm the kind of guy that would literally just walk to the store in my spandex. I would just... Underwear and all.
That's not okay.
If it was publicly acceptable, I'd walk there nude because I just wouldn't want to get dressed, and I wouldn't care what anybody thought. I just don't care.
Winter.
I just don't care. Yeah.
He is the world's biggest freeze baby.
Oh my gosh, it's horrible. It's horrible. Like, I don't get angry by very many things, but being cold physically, like emotionally, like causes so much trauma to my everything that I just I'm just angry. Okay, I digress. However, continue the story. Friendship material. It was great. I was athletic. I was smart. I was handsome.
I wasn't a fan of your haircut at the time.
Oh,
I thought you looked kind of nerdy.
It wasn't even a haircut. It was just curly hair. I just let my hair grow out.
Which is funny because now I'm like, I want you to curl your hair out.
I want you to look like Nico from Corridor. He's so cute.
I like Nico's haircut and his beard.
I can't grow a beard, so I'm screwed.
You need to work on that.
I try.
If you take your supplements every day.
Yeah, I'd have to take like 70 tons of testosterone. Or no, it's actually I think protein is what you need to eat to get a good hair growth.
The following summer.
It's okay, I'm a baby face.
The following summer was when he ended up. Well, we were both part of SCSC, Summer Christian Service Corps. My project was more oriented in a music ministry though, called Stained Glass, which is what he just mentioned a while back. And he was going to be on project in Nebraska. And it was actually our training for these projects was actually held at the same camp that we had worked together at the summer before that. And I remember a particular time, it was one of the nights, we'd get done with our leadership training and everything and dinner, and then before we headed to bed for the night, all of us would just gather in the lodge and we'd either play music, or we'd
Do
play
something.
ping pong, or
Yeah.
just socialize and visit. And he like singled me out. He's like, check this out. I've been working on some music production. And he showed me some, was it Audacity you were using?
No, it was Magic Music Maker.
Oh, Magix, yeah.
It was like the first time that I had programmed like a keyboard track with my keyboard at the time, which was a laptop keyboard. It wasn't even like an actual like musical keyboard. It was just I was figuring out what keys went to what notes. And so I had tracked this thing, and it took me a stupid long time. Looking back, it was kind of boring. It was like a boring track. It was like, it basically sounded like a loop, even though I didn't sample a loop. And so I was like, well,
I thought it sounded cool.
I
was really fascinated by music production in that season of my life, though. I still am, but a lot more back then.
Yeah.
So like anything that somebody younger than me did, I'm like, whoa, you're a genius.
And I sucked, and I still suck at music production. Like, I can play live, I can make up songs, I can make up cool licks. When it comes to the production, I can't get it done. I don't know what the issue is. I hate it. It makes me sad. I just add reverb to everything.
I remember it being really cool that he showed that to me. And I distinctly remember, I believe, what T-shirt I was wearing and how freaking hot it was in that lodge. Because I remember looking down at my shirt and seeing, like
The
where
sweat
I just
pool.
saw this sweat line across. I'm like, well, this is nice. I'm like, I don't feel like I need to impress this guy. Like, I have no interest in him whatsoever.
That's great.
And
now
so I
here we
just like,
are.
he thought, I was cool enough to show something creative he was doing. I'm like, whatever. So
You're
fast
lost.
forward. I know. See, I told you. So was there anything else that summer?
No, nothing really ever happened.
Although we did, in stained glass, we made a stop at the camp he was working at in Nebraska.
That's true.
And I remember he was everybody's favorite counselor. And I remember just appreciating that. And he let me play his guitar. And because we needed one.
I was hot on a girl from Nebraska
Oh
in
my
that time.
gosh, you were like madly in love.
She was a babe. She still is a babe.
She is. You go, girl.
Yeah.
I thought she was adorable. I'm like, aw, because I could see what was happening. And I was like, oh, they'd be so cute together. And so I was kind of rooting.
It's
for
so
them.
funny, like, thinking back to that stuff, but...
Yeah. I was also there the night that you two got in trouble.
What did we get in trouble for?
Well, we were all hanging out at this, and by all, I mean my bandmates, and then he and his SCSC partner. And I think the girl he was sweet on was there too. And we were all watching. We
that
had
was
a
the
Star
movie
Wars
night.
party.
That
We're having a Star Wars
was.
party. We're both avid
my
Star Wars fans.
gosh.
And I distinctly remember that.
I felt really bad for her, but
Yeah.
this comes back to the whole I don't care what anybody
Yeah.
thinks about me thing. But I felt really bad for her because they singled us both out. So you have when you're in SCSE, you have somebody who's technically in charge of you. In charge is kind of an aggressive term. They just direct you and they make sure you stay on task and make sure you're doing what you said you were going to do at the beginning. But they had singled us out and they pulled us aside and they're like, now you guys don't get too close to each other or anything. It was to the extent where they almost set what is it called? A restraining order almost is what it felt like to me at least. And I was just like, you think we can't be adults enough to just...
Weren't you holding her hand?
Of course I was.
There's the problem, Devin.
Nobody knew that.
I'm pretty sure I saw it.
It was...
And if we saw it...
No. We didn't hold hands in, public, spaces.
I thought it was
No.
during movie
It was...
night.
No.
No,
it wasn't. No.
Okay.
It was...
I'm wrong.
We were
That's okay.
obviously interested in each other, and everybody saw that.
Everybody knew it.
But it
Literally.
was just... We were there hanging out,
And I was there
was
2 days.
a bunch of people. There was a bunch of people there, so nothing stupid would have happened at all. So it was just a really awkward time to approach, specifically the girl. Like I said, I didn't really care because I was like, whatever, you guys are gonna do what you're gonna do. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. I have very specific standards and lines that I won't cross. But it was just I felt bad because it ruined her whole night.
I mean, they were just doing what they thought was right,
Yeah.
and I respect that. But it was like, ooh, maybe this wasn't the best place to do that.
Yeah.
You know, in front of
I
a
think
bunch
that's
of other 20-somethings.
I think that's
like,
what the hardest part was it was just something that
I think
happened
they
in front of
tried to-
everybody.
Yeah, they tried to make it more private, but, you know.
You'd pull one person out of the
Yeah,
room
it's like,
in a group of like 10 people. Like, that's obvious.
I don't envy being in their position.
No, not at
You
all.
know.
Anyways, yeah.
Anyway.
It was overall, the summer ended up being really great. I would say we don't stay in contact much, but I would still consider us friends. So ended up being for the better. Anyway, so now we fast forward to a couple years down the road.
Yes, he fell off the face of the earth.
I
All
did.
of a sudden. Okay, yes. Can I start this off, or do you want to start this off?
I'll do this one because
Okay,
I have a
sounds
particular way of telling stories, and I feel like we've been dragging on a lot. Which is fine because like details matter. I feel like the early details matter more than the late details because everybody can kind of connect those dots. Anyways,
Okay.
so
That's
a couple
fine.
years later, she actually was designated as the camp cook.
Yes. Now let me give a little background.
Uh-oh.
Why this is significant.
Okay.
Okay. Cheyenne had just graduated college with her teaching degree.
Oh, yeah.
Cheyenne was having an identity crisis because she was done being like a full-time student. Cheyenne was in the pits of despair. She had moved back in with her parents, and it was like there was this darkness in front of me. Like, I don't know what to do. I was terrified.
That's
and
funny.
My parents are like, you just
That's
need
funny.
to get a job. And I'm like, I'm so scared of the unknown. And that was where I was at, mentally and in my heart.
That's funny.
You didn't know that?
Well, I mean, you can assume that. Like, I assume that that's how everybody who graduates college is because, like, the people I meet that are fresh out of college sometimes are just dumber than a box of rocks
Thank you,
because
Devin.
they've been, like, taught and they've been sitting and listening to somebody speak or teach, you know, for, at this point, 10 plus years in some cases.
That's
And
fair.
so they just, like, they never learned how to apply what they learned.
I mean, that's what student teaching was supposed to be for.
Yeah, but it was so sparse, and so a lot of people that I see come out of college are just like, yeah, I have this fancy degree for this thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. I just don't know how to do it, and I'm like, find a job and apply for it. You know, it sounds like and I know there's a lot more nuance than that, but it just you got to put yourself out there. Like just having a degree doesn't guarantee something. You have to go and you have to go confidently. Now I digress, and let's get back to the story.
Okay, that's true. And for me, a lot of my was when I was at the end of my student teaching placement. My cooperating teacher pulled me aside, and she said, "I finally figured you out." And I'm like, "Oh boy!" And
That's
she's
right.
like, "Why aren't you going?" Because I wasn't. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at this. Back up. I was going for just general education, 1st through 8th grade, being able to teach as a standard classroom teacher. And literally almost everything I did involved music in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And she approached me about it. She's like, why aren't you going to school to be a music teacher? And I told her point blank, I'm like, well, when I started college, I did not have the confidence to do that.
Fair enough.
And I didn't feel like I was good enough to do that. And she's like, that's where you need to be. You'd be phenomenal. And I was like, oh. So, you know, this is within like the last week of my student teaching placement. And I had literally already graduated college with my degree. And
Shame.
I just remember chewing on that and thinking, wow, yeah, that would be a better fit for my personality and who I am. And I'm like, well, but I need a job because I can't. I had scholarships and grants going all the way through, and you know I had no means of income after that, and I really didn't want to take out any loans. And so anyway, I remember telling my parents about it over like a Cracker Barrel meal, and they're like, Cheyenne, you just need to get a job and work for a few years, and then you can move on with that. And I'm like, okay.
Anyways,
and so it was like,
the cook.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So anyway, all of this is background to show I was in a very like interesting transitional phase of my life. I was not comfortable with the fact that it was a transition. And I was also coming off of
doesn't
a
like
3
transitions at all.
I know.
I was coming off of 3
years of being off the dating market too.
Ooh.
That's a story for another time. So
Yeah.
transition
Long story.
to Devin I'm cooking for camp. I needed work.
Yes.
And money. And I love camp. So I cooked.
Yeah. Well, I guess at that point in time, that's when I didn't come into camp being interested even remotely. But I
saw his name on the list of staff, and I'm like, oh, Devin Myers, I haven't seen him in forever. Okay, sorry.
Anyways, I was actually interested in somebody else going into camp. Said person was at camp and was also a counselor. And so...
What? Was she really?
Mm-hmm.
That
and
year?
So, yeah. And so anyways...
Oh.
I found myself kind of, I guess, roughly halfway through the week. I was like, got roped into helping, and I was just helping, and then we started talking.
In the kitchen.
And, yeah.
Liaison to the
Yeah,
cook.
I did a lot of cutting strawberries.
Lettuce.
A lot of strawberries and
strawberries,
lettuce.
yeah.
We did a lot of strawberries and lettuce because we had a lot of salads and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, I found like halfway through the week finding myself kind of entertaining the idea of like a relationship or like being interested, but I never actively pursued it myself. Like I was there and I basically put myself out saying I'm interested, but I never directly said it, and I never pursued it as if I was.
Other than playing footsie with me.
Did I really?
Yeah, you did. We had a game night on one of the last nights of camp, and we were playing euchre.
Oh, okay.
And I sat across from him. He's like this card wizard. I don't know why we don't play more cards, because you're so much fun to play cards with. We need to do that.
I am the master.
He taught me how to play poker. Not there, but...
I don't remember footsie at all.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, your feet were underneath, and I was across from you.
Did you just rub my feet, and did I just let it happen?
It was mutual.
The mutual foot rubbing.
It was mutual.
Anyways, long story short.
It was nice.
Anyways, long story short.
Yeah.
We get to the end of the week, and this is how I knew I had kind of hit a chord, because at the end of the week, you always you say do your goodbyes and stuff. I don't even remember exactly how it happened.
Oh, I do.
But we were doing our closings and everything like that, parting our ways, and she was like, "Well, in case you ever need it," and then she just writes down her number, slips it to me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I win."
Let me back it up.
Oh, good Lord.
He actually handed me this piece of paper that kids had written on, because we passed around a piece of paper so kids could write their email or their phone numbers on.
And I couldn't read half of them.
Yep, and he was like, "Here, Cheyenne, you're a teacher, right? Yes. Can you read this handwriting? Do you know who this is from?" Or, it was partly that. And he's like, "Also, there's this phone number on here. I have no idea. The person didn't write their name with it." And I'm like, "Well, okay, let me see if I have their number in my phone." Thinking maybe it was a staff member or something.
Right.
And I looked through, and I'm like, "I don't have it." And then this came to me, and I'm like, "I don't know whose it is, but here's mine."
Yep. And that's how it was all over.
The only time I've ever given no, that's not true. It was the last time I ever gave my phone number to a guy.
That's right.
But he didn't ask for it. That's the first time I ever gave my number to a guy without him asking for it first. There we go.
The true glory of my charm. Anyways, progress on, because I feel like we're dragging on. Like, it's painstaking details at this point.
I know, because it's a podcast.
I know. It is a podcast, and it is a very detailed... I feel like anybody has a very detailed story. But we kind of fast forward a little bit. And she ends up getting a job in the town that I was currently living at as a teacher. And we just started hanging out, as you do. We would hang out and play music together. I mean, we would go with groups to watch movies or play Frisbee or just do something. And we always ended up kind of basically being together to some capacity.
Yeah, we did. Partly, and I realized this, there weren't a whole lot of girls my age around who were free at the times I was free. I had a lot of friends who were nurses who would work in the evenings, and as a teacher I'd be done, and the people who were available to hang out in the evenings were people like him. And our dear friend Jared. And so
him. Just got married.
Yes.
I know we've talked about this on the channel already, but congratulations to him. We'll have to have him on here on the Modscast and talk about his story and stuff sometime.
Oh, yes.
But anyways, I digress.
So I found I was spending, like, I had a lot of guy friends because they were the people who were available afterwards. And with him, I knew he was interested, and we had these multiple conversations at multiple times about where we were at, because we could tell there was something there. speaking
She
of
denied
transitions,
everything.
I was like, I don't know. I don't know. You know, and very indecisive, and probably led him on more than one occasion.
She did.
In
She was
really
horrible.
mean ways. Not
That's
mean
right.
ways, but just thoughtless ways. And there was a turning point. There was a turning point in November of that year, November of 2014. I think it was November. It had to have been November.
Yeah, something like that.
We went to Texas Roadhouse. Like, we'd
That's
gone
right.
to, like, Culver's, just the two of us before, because I think we were on our way to go and visit somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And we found ourselves at Texas Roadhouse.
That's right.
What did I say, babe?
What a beautiful restaurant, by the way. I don't remember. You were like very specific about this isn't a date. You can't pay for me.
Because I told him I wasn't, like, interested in anything other than
She
friends.
was a filthy liar. Yep,
I
left her
didn't know.
speechless. She
I
was
didn't
a
know.
filthy liar.
I didn't know what the truth was about
I didn't know what the
it.
truth was. You knew what the truth was. You just denied it. Long story short, I
wouldn't let him pay for me.
Yeah, we continued to hang out after that.
Yep.
And it just got to the point where I was like, I remember this one more vividly than basically anything else. I was like, I basically kind of sat down and told her, and I only remember very few, I guess, details about this. But one of them was we were sitting down and we were talking. We always had these potentially awkward conversations.
That's what we called them. Like, okay, potentially awkward question. It was
Yeah.
always from me to him. It was never from him to me. Always
Well,
me.
anyways, I forgot what question you asked or anything like that, but I like looked her dead in the eyes and I was like, just so you know, if like, I don't remember exactly how it led up to it, but it was like, my intention is to pursue a relationship with you and to get married to you. And I was like very particular. I was like, this is my intention. It's like, and basically I said out there and I said yes or no, basically at that point. Either we pursue a relationship, see if that works, and if it does, we get married, or we don't. Yeah. And I
had forgotten about that.
Was it like a day later? You were like, yeah, let's give it a shot. Yeah.
I think I had asked him point blank, how do you see me? And I was intending, and I ended up saying in that same conversation, you know, I think we can get the same benefit
I
to
can
our
name a couple
relationship
benefits.
of being friends as we could of dating. And he disagreed with me.
Very logically. Okay? I just want you to know that I always tried to make very logical arguments, and when she said that, I was like, are you kidding
You're
me?
full of crap, girl. But he didn't say that to my face.
Should have.
Maybe you should have. But after we had that conversation, you know, and I said that, and he's like, okay, think what you're going to think. We just hung out for a while. And then within 24 hours of that conversation, my entire perspective towards him, like, totally changed. I swear it was, I kid you not, it was some sort of divine intervention telling me to get my head out of my butt. Yeah. And then we had that conversation. I asked, okay, what are your intentions? I remember we were sitting in the church sanctuary.
Yeah.
We had been playing some music.
Yeah.
And just because we could. So we're both musicians. And I'm like, what are your intentions? And he told me point blank, he's like, well, I'd really like to marry you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And
Easy enough.
And we talked a little bit more about what that looked like. I feel like in that particular conversation, we covered a lot of the bases that premarital counseling covers.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And you know, we just talked out. Okay, what's your view on staying home and raising kids? Like, what's your expectation there?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we
and
talked about everything
we could think of.
a couple would need to talk about.
And this was all before we technically started dating. It was kind of funny.
And I think one thing to keep in mind too is we were definitely, you know, I think I was 20.
I think you were 21.
I was 20 or 21 at the time, so we were old enough to be. We surrounded ourselves with pretty wise people. So
yeah, it was 20. You were 21.
We kind of had the idea. We knew what we were getting ourselves into if that were the case. So, anyways, like after that, we kind of fast forward.
Our first date.
Our first date,
true
I
date
think, was it at my grandparents' house?
Yes, Valentine's Day.
And then my grandma.
Oh, I love your grandma.
Yeah. My grandma had made, what was it?
Stir fry?
Stir fry, which was delicious. It was amazing.
That was awesome.
I think we did like a...
Best first date ever.
Yeah, it was like a beef stir fry. It was wonderful.
It was delicious. And I got to hang out with his family and see the dynamic for the first time.
I think we watched School of Rock.
It was that the day we watched School of Rock.
Yeah, I think we watched School of Rock.
It was so hardcore.
Yeah.
No, it was.
And she was like, she was not ready for School of Rock, which is hilarious now because she thinks it's funny now.
I think it's really funny now.
I think part of it you were kind of stuck up like, I shouldn't be laughing at this because I'm a teacher and everything he's doing is illegal.
That was part of the the second time I watched it, I was like, good. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
No, so that went on for a while, and when you're dating, you date, you go out to eat things, you go out to watch things, you visit family members. But to kind of, fast forward so we're not stuck on these details for very long. It all kind of came down to when I was doing Stained Glass, which basically you tour the U.S. as like a band. We did a lot of stuff on the East Coast and whatnot. But long story short, we were obviously dating at the time.
We were. By the way, he did that the summer after we started dating. We started dating in February of 15, and he was on tour from like the entire summer of June
July,
through
August.
July. Not all of August.
August, I think midway through August was that was conference, right?
Because you proposed to me on August 2nd, and we were back at my parents' in Illinois.
Okay. Well, either way, while I was on tour, I took literally every penny I had saved up, because it without saying the amount that the ring cost, because I don't have I ever disclosed the exact amount to you?
No,
ever?
but I read the K Jewelers.
Savage. It was like, well, at this point, there's no point in holding secrets. But long story short, it was every penny that I had saved up to go on tour, to have food and buy collectibles and things like that, to remember, like memorabilia for the tour. One of my good friends who was on tour with me, Brandon, beautiful man that he is. We should also have him on the channel.
They're going to have a baby soon.
That's right. Good. Congratulations to them. But anyways, he went with me and we looked at rings, and then I actually texted some images to her sister, who's very up on the whole married, wedding stuff.
My sister is...
She should be a wedding planner, okay?
She has planned weddings.
It's disgusting.
She's amazing.
Anyways, I texted her some ideas and whatnot. I found a ring, and it literally was like every penny that I had left. I think I had $100 left for food for like 3-ish weeks left of tour.
It was quite a while.
I had to live on basically nothing. It was kind of... It was so sweet. I did it while I was on... It was stupid, okay? Don't. Save your money to eat food and buy her a lollipop ring or something. Anyways, so I bought that while I was on tour. And...
by the way, it's being cleaned and we're in quarantine.
That's true.
And I can't get it back yet.
We're doomed.
That's okay.
But we ended up, as stated, on August 2nd. So I bought it on tour, and then I shipped it to Rockford. And I shipped it to Rockford, Illinois, which was close to where her family lives. And as soon as I got off tour, she drove us back to her parents' house, and we were kind of there for a couple days while we were in transition to come back to where I live now. And
when we say drove to my parents, it was on our way back from Pennsylvania with a whole carload of stained glass agonizing people. It was
10 hours.
It was way longer than that.
Okay, was it like 14 hours?
It was long.
I don't know. It was like a long time. It was between 14 and 20 hours.
We didn't have to stop to sleep anywhere. We made a straight shot.
Anyways, misinterrupting
woman.
Oh. I get there and I like point blank. I was like, "Hey, Chris, Dina, which are her parents' name. Do you mind if we go to Rockford, do a little shopping and stuff? Like, I got some things I got to pick up." And they're like, they're kind of like, okay, I guess, like, is it just us? I was like, yeah. We literally get in the car and pull out of the driveway.
They knew that he was going to ask.
Mm-hmm.
They knew.
They're smart.
Yeah,
but
smart.
We get out of the driveway. They take, I think it was a left turn.
Yeah.
Out of the driveway. As soon as we take that left turn, I was like, "We're gonna go pick up my ring. I want to ask your permission to marry your daughter." It was like instantly, like right out of the driveway. I was like, "I ain't playing no games, y'all." But apparently that ended up like impressing your parents a lot.
Very much. I'm gonna throw my brother-in-law under the bus, mostly because my sister had gotten engaged just a couple months before that. They ended up getting married after we did. Bless her heart. She gave me permission. But when he went to ask, my dad was a little, what's the word? Abashed? Not abashed. A little bemused at how long it took him to actually ask, how long it took him to kind of build up to asking. And so when Devin was just like, we're not even in Rockford yet. I'm going to ask.
We're barely out of the driveway.
I know. So it was just funny to see how their personalities came out that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Once again, back to the whole I don't care what anybody thinks about me. But anyways, we did that. I got the ring, and literally I picked up the ring, showed it to your parents. You know, they were like, oh, that's cool. And we did a little shopping, and then we popped back. And I was like, hey, Cheyenne, do you want to go for a walk? As soon as I got back, we go for a walk. It was probably half a mile-ish, maybe.
On this country road.
It was a country road.
One of the most... And it goes...
Yeah, it winds. It's beautiful. It's country road, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, we get down to the very bottom of what would be considered a pretty big hill. And there's like a little ravine or a creek or whatever you want to call it on somebody else's farmland. And then I have her look at the water because we did this thing like, oh, you see something in the mirror while we were on tour.
All summer.
Isn't it beautiful and awesome? And it was
That's
cheesy.
not how he said it. He was much more charming.
I was much more charming. It was beautiful. It was cheesy.
Go look in the mirror.
Yeah.
I left a picture
beautiful.
There.
Yeah.
Somebody beautiful.
Yeah. But it was the cheesy stuff you do when you're trying to be romantic. Anyways, I do that whole spiel, and as I'm doing it, I get on a knee, and I'm like, as I'm getting on the knee, it's like she's so gonna tell that I'm on my knee now because
she's behind my back.
I'm behind her back doing this.
And he keeps talking, so I can hear the direction.
Yeah, and so I just, long story short, I get on my knee. And it was a little bit lackluster because I was like, I know she can tell that I'm on my knee, so that ruins the surprise of it.
It was so sweet.
But I proposed there, and she said yes, obviously, because who wouldn't want to? And then we walk back, and we tell everybody, and it's a nice little celebration. And then, how many months after I proposed to you did we get married?
He proposed at the beginning of August, and we got married at the end of October.
Right? October 24th.
Yep, 2015.
Yep. And so that brings us to here. And I guess that was pretty much all the details there were. I skipped over a lot of them because there's a lot of nitty-gritty details that we don't need to tell on this podcast that would take way too long, and we're taking a lot of time as it is. But anyways,
it's
that's
at their
story.
Own risk. If they want to watch this, they will click through.
That's true.
And they will listen.
That is our story leading up to our actual marriage date, October 24th, 2015. What is your opinion of the first year? Like, what's your opinion of the first year of marriage?
My opinion on the first year of marriage is that while I feel that the stereotypical couple will say the first year is great. And
there was really minimal hiccups, except for one particular instance, I think is what kind of cued it all in. When I transitioned jobs.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting. And I know for me, that first year was really hard for me, internally. To round out the picture of me a little bit. Yeah. I'm the oldest in my family of 4 siblings, and I'm a girl. And I mean, those oldest
two
girls,
notches
you
against
oldest,
you already.
You those of you who are oldest girls out there, you probably realize that you're pretty self-aware, that you can be a little on the bossy side, that you can be a little bit obstinate. You know, you stand your ground. Some of you had to be kind of a second mom to help your mother out, and that was definitely me. Yeah. Which was not a negative thing. But I will tell you what, I know very few people as stuck in their ways as myself. And
it's true. It's very true. It's unbelievably true.
I love you, and this is such a testament to how much he loves me. Thank you. Basically, it was a year of learning that I couldn't control everything I wanted to be able to control. And I was also coming off of being super sick with mono, and that can really mess a person up. Tell you what.
Yeah, that was fun.
I think that's a story for another time.
Well, I'll touch and go on it because it was in our first year of marriage. Like the first thing, literally the first thing that happened.
I was in the middle of having mono when we got married, actually.
Yeah, but we didn't know that. So long story short, she was prescribed some medicine for strep. But if you have mono and you take this medicine, it just like destroys everything in your life,
it can.
basically.
And if you're allergic to amoxicillin, which I didn't realize I was.
Yeah, she got wrecked.
Oh my
Long
gosh.
story short, it was like a
It was-
week in.
No,
Like-
it was 2 days in.
It was 2 days
2
in.
days in of
And I had to take her to the emergency room. 2 days into our marriage, for better or for worse, it was personified. 2
Sickness
days
and
after
health.
I was married. And I had to drive her to the emergency room, and
At
she got
3
pumped
a.m.
full of stuff, and she was like crying and freaking out. It was horrible. And keep in mind that
It was.
I work thirds, so I got home and I started to lay down like, oh, sweet night. And like 20 minutes, and she's like, Devin, I gotta go to the emergency room. I'm like, why? Long story short, she said she started closing up, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I had broken out in
no.
hives, like awful hives.
Yeah.
With about 24 hours,
Mhm.
within the first 24 hours of
Yeah.
being married. Thank God.
It didn't happen on the
much.
wedding day?
Wedding day, I looked great. I felt great. I'd been sick that entire week of school.
Yeah.
I was out of school like
just
with a
worked out.
sore, horrible pustules in my throat, and I was so sick. And then that Friday was the rehearsal dinner, and I was feeling well enough. We all got down there, and the wedding was beautiful that Saturday. Sunday night, I started breaking out
Pretty much
my
everywhere.
trunk, and it spread to the rest of my body. I was an itchy, red, calamine lotioned mess going into the courthouse to get our wedding license. Do you remember that? I had like this turban on.
The lady looked at you so weird.
I looked like AG double hockey sticks. Like, I looked so bad
Yeah.
and so sick. And that was just the beginning. Then I swelled up,
Yep.
and then, yeah.
Their throat started closing up.
Oh,
Yeah.
so bad.
But I mean, outside of that,
So
like
bad.
from my perspective, outside of that, the first year was pretty smooth sailing because a lot of it is that whole honeymoon phase type deal. You know, you're still figuring each other out. I think a lot of your struggle outside of, you know, that initial issue was I worked thirds for a really long time. And for those of you that worked thirds for a long time, you just know that it changes you. Like, you don't have as much energy. You don't feel well. Like, you just look jaundice all the time. Okay, not quite, but you just, something is completely off emotionally, physically, mentally. And I transitioned jobs from Quick Trip thirds to Best Buy on like a more of like a first/second swing shift type deal. And I just started getting like crazy. She felt like I was going crazy because I would just be so feisty and all the time and just jokes.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was sarcastic, and I was how I am like on stream and how I am right now. That's what I started to do. And she's like, this isn't normal. He's changing. He lied to me.
I felt some sort of
Like
some
betrayal.
sense of betrayal
Yeah.
because it didn't click in my head that a person their
disgusting.
personality and mood will be altered by that kind of sleep schedule.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And so anyway, I thought he was I was like, what is
Being a turd
this?
nugget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's about time we go ahead and
Jump into like, so that, I mean, that basically describes our first year of marriage basically in a nutshell. And we decided to divide this next session up to like our first 5 years of marriage to kind of recap that as well, because this October is going to be our 5 year. Yay us, because 5 years in the grand scheme of eternity is a really long Just kidding.
we've been dating for 5 years.
That's true.
Actually, that's how we celebrated by buying a truck
That's right, baby.
on that week.
It was great. Anyways,
We actually
I think
just needed another.
there's only one real thing I want to cap in our first 5 years, because everything else that happened to us as a couple kind of happens to people on the individual level. You have to find new homes and housing, and you're kind of settling into jobs. You're making sure everything's running smoothly. There's only one thing that was very particularly different from us than some people, not all people. We actually had a handful of friends that have experienced similar situations to us. But what was it? It was between our second and third year
Yeah.
of being married. We actually had a miscarriage, which I didn't, at the time, I literally did not process it. I thought I was fine. I went, it was sad. I knew she was sad. She was broken. She was figuring herself out after it. And I was there to kind of console her.
That took a long
and
time.
I did my best, to make sure she felt like it was okay. Like anytime that happens, you kind of feel like it's your fault in general. Just that's the nature of just miscarriages. But like a year later, almost to the day, wasn't it? Long story short, she had a dream, and it made me just kind of think about the miscarriage, and I just started breaking into tears. Like, I couldn't like talk. All I could do was cry. And it just came down to the fact that I needed to go see my grandparents. Like, I just needed to. They raised me. And for whatever reason, I was bawling until I could talk to them. And I can't explain it other than I needed to. And I tried to be all, tough guy. And I walk into the room, because at this time my grandma was really sick. For those of you who don't know about it, a little over a year ago she passed.
Actually, it'll be
just under a year, actually.
Just under a year.
Because was it the 24th?
25th.
25th.
Mm-hmm.
The 25th of this month, actually, she passed. But
it'll be a year.
It'll be a year on the day this was
today.
released. Yeah, as of
It's been
today.
a year since she
Oh,
passed
good
away.
Lord. Oh, my days are getting messed up. Anyways, I had walked into my grandma's room trying to be a tough guy, and I'm just like, "Hey, Grandma, how's it going?" And I'm holding her hand or whatever, saying hi, just making sure she knows like I'm there. And I just start like bawling. And she was, keep in mind, she was pretty sick at this time, so for her to make any quick movement was a big thing. She just sat straight up out of bed. She's like, Glenn, something's wrong. Because I'm just bawling. I'm bawling. We end up getting to tell the story of kind of what happened, the name that we had picked out for the baby. And it was just, at that moment, I was able to finally officially like let it go. But it took me like a year of like nothing happening.
It was actually longer than a year.
A little bit longer than a year?
It was
a year and a half. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like, I don't know why it took me that long to process through it, but it just did.
It did.
And I haven't had an issue about it really since, as far as like being that deeply emotionally distraught about it. But I don't know. I just had to share it with my grandparents, and they were all they were very supportive of it. I'm glad I got a chance to share that with my grandma before she did pass, because I think that would have sucked, not being able to tell her,
Yeah, it was a few months before she really went downhill after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess that's another thing that happened within our, that's fairly recently, actually, a year as of today. But yeah, that was another big moment, I guess, in our first 5 years of marriage. So
yeah. It's a somber way to kind of wrap it up, but
yeah,
I would say that particular incident was a big, such a shaping influence on, I guess, my approach to family and my approach to babies and my approach to the way I see my husband too, because there was a long time where I blamed him for not being able to get pregnant again. And
I may be shooting blanks. We don't know yet.
I mean, it is what it is. But it kind of opened the door for me to truly think about what I believe, I guess, is the theology of life, and how much God really is in control. And so that could be a whole extra podcast.
It really could be.
We really are like we're going way over what we thought we would with this.
Oh, I'm sure.
Anyway, so I think we'll go ahead and jump to what we've learned.
What we've learned, yeah.
And I feel that we've been doing this through the whole thing.
We've been a little bit, but I feel like one thing to kind of recap of what we were just talking about is just learning to really appreciate the small details and those slow moments, because life can get so busy. And as somebody who does try to visit my grandparents and family, that's within a reasonable driving distance, roughly, every other-ish week, I try to pop over to my grandparents' house and say hi to Grandpa, see how he's doing, see how my brother and sister are doing as they're still living there. And we try to visit her family at least once a month, but usually it ends up being, every other month or so.
Or every 6 weeks is kind of how
every
it's
6 weeks is pretty reasonable. And sometimes we'll do it more often than that. Her brother being in the Air Force, coming back, certain times we make it a point to be there when he's there. Yeah. So that way he knows that we appreciate him, that, that we want to be there and encourage him when he's back, because being away on military leave and stuff like that, I shouldn't say military leave because that's not quite what it is, but being away on duty, that can be a lonely thing sometimes. So especially when birthdays and celebrations and stuff come around that you just can't have that physical presence. So being there for them physically is important. It made me, like, as far as what we've learned, it made me really appreciate those slower moments, those more still moments, those more calm things. You don't have to be running around at like Disney World to be able to take in, those family moments, I guess. So yeah. And I guess one thing we should probably recap, since we did kind of talk about how we coped with things throughout, I guess what are some things that we learned in our first 5-ish years of marriage that we can kind of give as advice, I guess would be a really cool way to close this thing out.
I would say, he mentioned earlier how it becomes so easy to focus on the negative, and I think the best piece of advice I ever heard was look at the positive things that they are, look at the strengths that they bring to the table, and you need to focus on those. And you need to pray that those qualities in them will grow and
kind of blossom. And one thing, like, I'm a person of like really deep faith, and one thing I've also come to learn is having Jesus in the center of your relationship and asking him for help is frankly so underestimated or underestimated. Underestimated, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I would agree
for
with
me,
that.
I didn't realize how much I would need to do that.
Yeah.
And ask for help. And also just learning how to surround yourself with people who are going to speak life into your marriage, people who aren't going to say, well, just go find somebody else.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And
I agree.
That is such an easy pill to swallow. It really is, because there are so many other fish in the sea. But that comes back to, okay, what does your word, does the promise you made, does the vow you made mean anything? You know, and coming face to face and battling my own selfishness on a daily basis. That's one thing my dad told me before going, and he's like, you're gonna have to go go to war with yourself for the rest of your life. Yeah. And
absolutely, I would agree with that. That's a pretty accurate statement. And I think as cheesy as like skits and things like that have made it sound, expectation versus reality, I think is, if I were to put a kind of title on the first 5 years of like learning marriage, yeah. Get on my spotlight. My spotlight. Is expectation versus reality. Everybody has their perfect wife, their perfect husband, their perfect scenario, their perfect wedding, their perfect proposal. They have that lined out how they want that to be in their head. So figuring out what your expectation of something is versus the reality of what it can be is crucial when you first get married. Because that's ultimately what you're doing, honestly, in the first 5 years, is you're sorting out what is expectation versus reality. Should I expect this person to think the same way I do? Should I expect them to problem solve the same way I do? Should they have the same values as I do? I mean, should they be willing to sacrifice as much as I feel like I'm sacrificing? And all of those things are basically a no, because you're two totally separate people from totally different lifestyles with totally different influences. So you have to tailor what reality it is and what you can compromise your expectations to be of someone while being realistic. Like, I expect my wife to be somebody who's loyal, who's encouraging, who is a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more down to earth. And those are things I'm not going to compromise on, because that is something that's very crucial that I think all marriages should have on both parties, honestly. But should I expect my wife in every single aspect of her life to be like this perfect 10 like figure? Should she have the perfect hair all the time? Should she wear the certain colors I want, or the certain clothes I want all the time? Like, that is not realistic. And so you have to separate like those type of expectations and step into reality a little bit. It doesn't matter how beautiful they are on days like when you go out to dates or get dressed or go out to the city or whatever. Like, there are going to be times when they're going to be hideous too. Like, they wake up and they're drooling and they have nose running and they're just like, they're sicker than a freaking dog. And you have to accept that in that moment, that is the reality, and no level of expecting them to be this perfect Disney princess in that moment will ever fix that. So you have to balance that expectation versus reality. And I think that is very crucial for the first 5 years of marriage, is just figuring out what those are and what you can and should compromise and what you can't and shouldn't compromise, I think, are really big things.
And I think one of those can't and shouldn't compromise is, we've had the occasional conversation like divorce just isn't in our vocabulary.
Yeah, it's not an option.
And, that was something that, and I'm not proud to admit this, but that was something I really had to come to terms with, which sounds awful, doesn't it? It just sounds awful. But you
heathen.
One thing that being married has really made me see is just how awful my heart can be, and how awful my own feeling, where awful places my feelings can lead me. Oh yeah. Again, with that self-control thing.
Yeah.
And and so like we've had a few different conversations over the years about like I would make some sort of careless statement like, well, if you hadn't done that, I'd probably divorce you, and he'd be so hurt by that, and and jam me up on it in the most loving way possible. And those moments left me broken, because I realized how careless that was and how damaging that could be. And it's really made me having those conversations, having somebody who will lovingly point out, hey, just so you know, that the value of that is just unreal. And
in part of that too comes out of the fact of realizing like you yourself are not the most important thing on the earth. Like, the earth doesn't revolve around you. And so I'm able to stop for a minute and step to the side and say, okay, you did this wasn't okay for that reason, rather than like, well, who do you think you are, like, doing that to me? And so, I mean, being able to step back and realize you're not the center of the earth anymore. You're not just taking care of yourself. You're taking care of somebody else's emotions or finances or physicality. Like, you're taking care of those things. And I feel like sticking on the topic of like divorce, I feel like I very much so take my grandpa's perspective on this. I remember my grandma one time, because my grandma was a spitfire, man. Like,
you got hair in your mouth. Okay,
I got hair in my mouth hole, baby girl. My grandma was a spitfire, man. She was a force to be reckoned with. And I remember there was one time she got
like a typhoon.
Yeah, I don't remember why, but she got so frustrated, like so unbelievably frustrated about something. And she walked out the
How old were you when that happened?
I don't know, 12, 13-ish. I wasn't super old, but I was old enough to know what had happened, obviously.
Very formative. Yes.
And she comes out flying. Grandpa's working on the truck, trying to make sure it's all up and running and whatnot. She comes flying out those doors. She's like, Glenn, I want a divorce. And he, like a bull in a china shop, baby. He's like, he walked into that house. He didn't like, he wasn't violent about it. It was like, you will never threaten that again in front of these kids. And it was just like, it was such a formative, like, holy crap, like that just happened. And my grandma, after kind of settling back down, realized like that was stupid. Like, and she wasn't afraid to tell us it was stupid either. So I think that's really important as well. Definitely. And it brings me to what I think is the second most important thing outside of expectation versus reality, is surrounding yourself with people that are more wise than you. I don't care how old you think they are, or how mean you think they are, or how much you didn't like listening to them as a kid. If they're your grandparents or parents, if they are still married, are far more wise in relationship skills than you will ever be, because they infinitely have more experience than you.
And by saying married, though, like, they are like legitimately glad to be married to the person they're with. Like, if you're surrounding yourself with people who are miserable in their marriages, like,
they're doing something wrong.
You can't
they're
make
doing
that
something
same
wrong.
statement. You can't make that same statement. Yeah. It's not that there aren't going to be times where you're not a little on the miserable side.
You're going to be at each other's throats. It's okay.
But the people who choose to stay there, or the people who choose to be frustrated all the time, like, we're not talking about those people who've been married for 20 plus years and that's where they're at. We're talking about the people who have been married and, they've come to terms with that expectation versus reality, and they've been willing to give each other. And those of you who might be in marriages like that, I'm not trying to like minimize that or be offensive.
I think quite honestly, I mean, because I'm the guy who doesn't care what people think, you're doing something wrong if you're perpetually stuck in the idea that your marriage sucks, it's miserable, and it'll never get fixed. You then are saying that there is no way ever that you can fix the person that you're with, and you're instantly focusing on the wrong thing. It's not about fixing the person you're with. It's about seeing where they're at and how you guys can grow together.
And it's a heck of a lot easier if you have the same core values.
Values, for me, values are a non-compromise in marriage, because then you're not at odds with, quite honestly, like political, religious, financial, physical beliefs. As long as they line up, everything else will kind of come into alignment. And there are things in each of those categories I just listed where you're going to be a little different here and there. That's different people, different backgrounds. But if you find yourself staying miserable in your marriage, there's a couple things you need to do. You need to reevaluate. Are you thinking you're the most important person in that marriage? I
like to think I am sometimes.
Right? So that's the first portion. Do you think you're the most important person in that marriage? I think I reversed all those words, but it's okay. Dyslexia is amazing. If you do think you're the most important person, you need to change your thought process immediately, because you're not. Like, flat out. You are important, but you are only half of the puzzle. You're not 51%. You're not 49%. You are 50%. You're straight down the middle. You are as important as them, and they are as important as you. And if you still find yourself, after you guys sit down and talk about, okay, you stepped on me here, I don't like it when you say this, can you please stop? And if they're mature enough to, it might take a little coaxing if you guys have been in the habit of doing that for a long time. But if they're willing to rethink their self, you guys will meet in the middle and you find yourself being happier, or at least not living perpetually in despair and frustration of your marriage. If you find that doesn't fix it, you're going to need to find people more wise to say, okay, there is going to be a 1-year hump, like where you guys are at each other's throat. There is going to be a 5-year hump where you guys think that things suck, because you're always trying to find, like, what is it? Well, what's the term? Sensationalism. You're always trying to find the next big thing. That's not how it works with marriage. Like, the best thing is there. It is your responsibility to cultivate that. And so you need to realize you're not the most important person, and realize that there is nothing better as long as you keep working at it.
It takes grit. It takes determination. Like, it's
not easy.
It takes you wanting it. Like, you have to want it. If you don't want it, then you're not going to get it. A happy marriage it doesn't just happen.
No, you have to work on it. And I'll tell you flat out, if somebody says that marriage is easy, they are lying to you, like, flat out. It doesn't matter. Like, for us, anybody who sees us thinks that we have a great marriage and we're always happy, because we genuinely, we pretty much are. But it's not easy to do that. It takes those times when somebody says something that irritates you or does something that irritates you. You have to say, okay, look, this is what you did. This is why it bothered me. Then you can work through it.
So I think, like, for me, to sum up what we've learned, communication. Basically, at the most basic level. And not, I guess, the fact that we have made that decision to be committed to each other, there's a safety net there, and there's grace there, because now, like, truly, I know that I can trust him.
Yeah.
I know that I can trust him, that even on my worst, ugliest days, and I mean that with all my heart, there are days. Weeks, maybe. I don't know.
I won that battle, like, day one of marriage.
Yeah, you did.
Yep.
I can trust that.
Let's just say
I can trust that if I
she's
bring.
still got a nice body, even if she's broke out. It's great.
Thanks, Dad. Okay, that may have been a little on the TMI side.
No, never too much information. I don't care what they think. We've established this. Either way. I established that battle day one, baby.
Because of that grace and that safety net to know that he is committed to me. I know that what I bring to him and say, this, I am struggling here. We have totally different love languages. We have totally different skill sets.
Absolutely.
We're very different. More on love languages later. I think that could be a whole podcast.
That will be, but I will say, before we digress off of that point, please take those tests and see where you line up That way you guys can balance each other out a little bit better.
Yeah.
You guys can get a feel for how you guys interact with certain situations. So take the love languages test, take the personality test, see where you guys line up and where you differ, and it makes things easier.
Agreed.
No, you can go.
Well, I mean, I know I can bring what I need to him.
Yeah.
And he will at least consider it, especially if, I bring it to him in a way that isn't like, you suck at life,
I had to learn, I guess, for me, for those of you guys that you're just power horses, like a mule, okay? You're like a pack mule. You get a mission and you just go and you 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 go. One thing that I had to learn is even if I am absolutely correct, sometimes I should just shut up. Right? Right? Would you agree?
It goes both ways.
And it goes both ways. If you are right, sometimes that's not what matters. It's the listening part that matters. Yes. Like they don't need you to. And as a guy, I feel like I need to fix everything all the time. They don't always need you to fix something. They need you to sometimes just sit there and let them make your shirt salty and wet with tears. It's disgusting. But sometimes that's what they need. And vice versa, Yeah. So I think that's what defines a successful marriage from an unsuccessful one. Take divorce. First step, take divorce out of your vocabulary. Not an option. It is not an option. Make sure that your expectations and reality are in the right area. Make sure you surround yourself with some wise people. And quite honestly, have a similar belief system. Not that you have to convert everybody to your religion or your political views, but having similar beliefs in each of those categories takes a lot of the edge off of some of your arguments because you don't feel like you're on separate paths. Because you will feel like you're on separate paths.
We feel that even though we do have
very similar,
especially both of you are working, you can absolutely really feel that way.
So you'll miss time together, and you have to cultivate, the time you spend together. You have to cultivate those relationships even after your marriage. Once you're married, that doesn't just mean you win and you're done.
No.
As much as I'll make fun and say I won, I'm done now. I don't have to do anything. I can get my dad bod. You still have to cultivate it. You still have to work at it. So.
And.
Ew.
I told him. You.
Woo!
That was our relationship in a nutshell, right there.
That was pretty much it.
That being said, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up, and we are going to next time talk about what, Devin?
Next Modscast, we are going to talk about living with a perfectionist, and both of us exemplify this in two. Thanks, Happy. Both of us exemplify this in pretty much two different ways. So I think it's really interesting, and I want to kind of break down the nuances of perfectionism and what they can look like and what they do look like. Yeah. So
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be a good. It's going to be a good podcast or Modscast, however you want to think about it.
Get all the dirt.
All the dirty little details, baby. Anyways, we're going to be doing these podcasts every Saturday, basically till the end of existence. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining us in the Modscast. It's been a blast. It's a lot of fun. We are going to be looking at doing some different setup and things like that. We got a lot of work to do to get this thing where I want it to be. However,
we'll be okay. It's a learning process.
I'm a perfectionist. I don't like the background that much. I don't like the setup that much. It works. But I could do so much better. I'm a perfectionist. Anyways, I digress. Thank you, Happy. Anyways, if you guys would be so inclined to, check out the description below. As previously stated, we have a donation page, more designed for my live streams, which you guys can visit every Monday and every Wednesday. Wednesdays are currently 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Mondays are in a little bit of limbo while I work some things out with my work schedule. But long story short, they will be happening on Mondays. We do also upload gaming content every Monday through Friday. And if you want to stay up to date on that and you are not a member of the community, hit the subscribe button right meow. Do it right now. Also, what else do they got to do? If they are a member of the community, but they have not hit the
notification bell?
The bell notification icon. You know why?
Why should they hit it?
Yeah, because it will update you on when we do absolutely everything, so you don't have to memorize like I do when I'm supposed to upload and when I'm supposed to do things. Also, you can customize that to your heart's content. You can customize it as far as what you want notifications for, or you can just leave all notifications on, and every time we do anything here on this channel, you will, in fact, be notified. If you guys do want to see a specific topic covered, please comment in the description down below. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about for hours on end.
Oh my gosh.
Because this was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I expected this to be like a 15-minute process of us being like, so we met one time and we got married and here we are.
And we're still going.
And we're still going
in
strong.
multiple ways.
That's right, baby.
I think from me to you, we pray for our viewers regularly.
We do.
And just want you to know that we're thinking of you as you are possibly on lockdown.
Oh, you are
your
on
state.
lockdown. And we're
Most
sorry.
states are still, right?
I think so. I think we're looking at like We're looking at like May 1st.
In May. Okay.
Instead of, like where we live in Wisconsin, like May 26th is tentative.
You know what? It is what it is, Devin.
I'm not going to rant. I'm not going to rant.
Promised.
Maybe in the next podcast.
Maybe. But be safe. Stay well. Get some sunshine. Get some fresh air if you can.
That's right.
And make time for the little things bring you joy. And
Absolutely.
let that joy be a little uncontrolled, because I think we need more of that right now.
I agree.
And
maybe start up a podcast. Who knows?
It's our best quarantine life,
Yeah.
And we know we've been kind of in a very protected little sphere for us.
We have been.
And we are grateful for that.
We're very
So those of
grateful
you
for
who are out there and dealing with some really scary stuff, please know we're thinking of you. We're praying for you, and we will get through this. Okay.
All
so
right.
much love to all of y'all.
Absolutely. However,
Thanks for joining us.
that is going to conclude the episode.
Sorry.
Thank you guys so much
still is thunder.
for joining us. Remember,
Yeah.
I love you guys. I'm going to show my filthy little cake hole. That's my favorite line of the whole channel. I love you guys, and we will see you next time. Toodles!
You gotta do your thing.
Oh.